Hi, I'm Allison Irita, and we are
Halo Circus!
A few months back, our fans gave us an incredible tour, 30 cities, and San Diego is one of our last stops.
We love San Diego. We've played there a few times. It's close to our hometown of Los Angeles, and we wanted to do something really special. So when we were looking at venues, we came across this place, the Irenic, which is not only an amazing venue, it's this old converted church. It's a great club. We found out that they're involved in this youth homeless shelter, along with Urban Street Angels and 8 West.
We got Creature Canyon.
Yes.
And Ocelot.
It's going to be amazing. You guys, we hope to see you there. The Intellectual Podcast will be there representing. And let's make this a beautiful night of celebration and awareness. November 10th, the Irenic Theater, 7 p.m. We hope to see you.
Yeah!
Welcome to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, David Dawson, and this is episode 174. Hey guys, it's Thursday in San Diego, November 3rd, and I want to make sure that you guys are aware of tonight's amazing event with a focus group. That's Ryan Castleman and Yvette Angulo. They are screening their brand new 30-minute short film, Our Barrio, at the Museum of Photographic Arts tonight. Doors open at 6:30 p.m., so make sure you get to the park on time. There will be a little bit of a red carpet going on, and then sometime around 7 o'clock they will begin screening. And they're doing something very cool. They're not just focusing on their film, but they're bringing in several other short films from town and feature films from town to screen clips and trailers of their productions. And we, the Intellectual Podcast, will be chatting with the filmmakers of all the films on stage. And you'll get some insight into what they're up to, how their films are doing, what they're doing with distribution, and all that sort of stuff. Films to be featured tonight will be Hush, South of 8, Go Out in Violet Waters, Among Thieves, and Callejero. And it's going to be a really great night. To get tickets, which are free, go to ourbarrio.eventbrite.com. That's ourbarrio.eventbrite.com. OURBARRIO.eventbrite.com. And we'll see you tonight at the Museum of Photographic Arts. And if you're one of our New York listeners, you're going to love today's episode. This is with Joy Donze, and she's an actress in New York. And tonight she has her one-woman play called Dear Diary, which is premiering at the United Solo Festival. And her play goes on at 7:30 at Theater Row Studio Theater in New York City. You can get your tickets to that at unitedsolo.org/us/Dear Diary-2016. That's tickets are available for Dear Diary, Joy Donze's one-woman play, which is hysterically funny from everything I know about it. You need to make sure you check it out. So if you're in New York City, get your tickets at unitedsolo.org/us/Dear Diary-2016. And now, hear from Joy Donze herself about her acting experience coming up from the sticks into the big city of New York. And, we hear a little bit of the insight into how she came up with Dear Diary, her one-woman play. It's a fun interview. She's got a lot of energy. And I'm happy to put it out here for you today so you can listen to it before you go see her production tonight in New York City. And those of you in San Diego, we will see you tonight at the Museum of Photographic Arts for a focus group screening of Our Barrio. And now, here's Joy Donze on the 174th episode of the Intellectual Podcast.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
So, all right.
Why don't you start?
Oh, well, we were just talking about being a karaoke hostess.
Oh, I got invited to karaoke a couple nights ago. I didn't go. I'm supposed to go. I'm like obligated to go. I'm half Filipino, so. But I didn't
here
go.
in New York?
I felt really guilty. Yeah, here in New York.
In New York?
I felt really guilty for not going.
There's no reason to feel guilty.
It had been a long day. It's been a lot of long days since I got here. So.
Yeah.
But we're here. Whitney's here. I can't believe Whitney's here.
I know. Last minute.
Flying in for one day, flying back out. Whirlwind of interviews.
Yes.
And we get to sit with you. So, What's your last name, Joy?
Donze. Like Fonzie, but with a D. Donze.
Okay. What's the origin of that?
It's French. Donze.
Oh, okay. It sounds prettier that way.
I know. I should start just saying it like that. Joy Donze. I think it's like, actually, I think both sides of my family are French.
Yeah. So where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Perryville, Missouri, which is southeast Missouri, very, very bottom border. Small town of, I would say there's like maybe less than 10,000 for sure, probably closer to 6,000. My school was small, K through 12, same kids, 12 girls in my class.
I share that experience.
Yep. Yep.
Surrounded by country girls.
I know. Farmer vibes. And like, it was great, but I kind of moved and then never went back pretty much.
Where did you move to?
So went to Kansas City, which is actually where I met Whitney, which was like a great little stepping stone because I remember like feeling like I was just in this huge metropolitan city. And now I look back, I'm living in New York now. So it's like, I know Kansas City is a smaller city, but it was
everything's
perfect.
relative.
It's
right?
all relative. And
So-
it was perfect for me coming from like 5 stoplights. You know, it was like a nice little.
I said the same thing almost verbatim, that Kansas City is a small town, like posing as a big city, and it's perfect. stepping
It's
stone.
perfect. And I actually still love Kansas City. We were just talking about how I feel like it's kind of this little gem of the Midwest. It's kind of like a little secret and nobody knows how awesome it is, but there's tons of professional theaters there. They really take good of their care of their local talent, I think. And what's interesting about Kansas City that's different, like let's say from St. Louis, and like don't quote me on this, but like I think this is true. The taxes in Kansas City get circled from the suburbs, get fed into downtown. So like the outer borough money helps support and sustain what's going on in the city, whereas St. Louis, that's not happening.
They each go to their own little
They
town.
each stay. So communities that are poor stay poor, and communities that have money remain having all of the money. So it's interesting to me. St. Louis was the closest city near me, but I found Kansas City to be so different in a lot of ways and for the better, I think.
Well, and more theaters, more local theaters. I know in St. Louis there are theaters, but a lot of times they get shows in from New York. They do the touring shows.
Exactly.
You know, like the Fox Theater and things like that. So
Exactly.
less opportunity for local talent.
I think so too.
But yeah, KC, definitely a little gym plus great barbecue.
Yeah, there is great barbecue.
So when did you come to New York?
I moved to New York in 2009. I finished undergrad in May and then kind of just moved here blindly. And I still can't believe that I did it because I knew no one. I didn't even know what Backstage was. I think I started looking for auditions on Craigslist, which led to some really great, interesting first audition experiences. But I think, you know, I'd had a couple people say that they'd had a hookup for me here or new rep that they would introduce me to. And so I moved here kind of thinking that people were going to help me, and then realized that that wasn't going to happen and that I was pretty much on my own. And the first year was probably like rough and pretty lonely, but I would say like we said earlier, that's true to anywhere you move by yourself and you're going to try to be an artist and you know no one and you have no community. So
there's always going to be that adjustment time.
Totally.
You have to go through.
Absolutely.
You have to build your community.
You have to build your community and find your people. And it took a while. But as I did, things started to get easier for sure. And more opportunities came about because I knew more people, like had more connections.
What was the first like big opportunity that you encountered when you got here?
Man. Well, it's like all relative, you know, like I think my first professional, like paid gig was for this entertainment company called RWS and Associates. And they started out just doing like industrials, like theme park work. And now they're an Emmy award winning company that has cruise lines all over the world. they've pretty much swiped up the theme park scene. They take really good care of their theme park performers. And a lot of people, like, theme parks were kind of, I guess, taboo for a while. And people were like, oh, don't do it. But like this company working for them, like, I was really proud of my job. And when I got back to the city, they do all kinds of industrials. Like they'll fly to a kids' cancer research hospital and put up a little show around Christmas time for the kids and pay the performers really well. And it's like a 3-day commitment. And they do mall performances. I went to like, you know, how many Santa Claus openings all over the country. And I was like the little elf that like did a song and dance and like brought them in. But it was sort of like a way to make money in the arts that was something that I found that was like a relationship that I still work for them sometimes around Christmas. And I just found everybody that works there to be so lovely and fun that it was kind of like, and you move up, you know, that your first gig might be a 6-show day outside in Pennsylvania. But then the next summer they'll be like, okay, we're going to give you a contract with indoor theaters and you're not.
You got to put your dues in first.
Exactly.
Work your way up.
But they're doing great now. And they just bought a space here in Long Island City, which is this neighborhood we're in right now is like blowing up right now. I don't know if you saw the condos that are being built, but they bought a big, huge warehouse building so that they can rehearse cruise ship shows there, you know, which are humongous. So like to have that kind of space in New York is unheard of. They bought this huge industrial building here. So now when you go, there's like 12-person cruise line ships performing in there and rehearsing to go out. So it's like cool that I've seen them evolve just in the 7 years I've been here. Like I'm proud that was like one of the first companies I worked for, I think, that hired me, you know, really even if I was an elf, you know, still like you got to start somewhere.
Like it was like a really good experience.
It was. And yeah, it provided a lot of stamina and like staying positive too, because doing 6 shows outside a day and like dropping weight and like just being like, oh my God, like, do I have to put on this costume again and this wig and like go out and smile? But like, I think it helped me have crazy stamina because doing that 6 times a day for 3 months was like intense, you know? It only gets easier, I feel like.
So have you been doing pretty much theater in New York or have you done a little film TV? I saw something about, was it a celebrity ghost story?
I did do that. I did do there's a few shows that shoot here, like through the Bio channel, and there's like Investigation Discovery where there's like these reenactment shows. And the reason I went, they're great. And the reason I went was because I'm secretly obsessed with ghost stories.
Me too. I watch them all the time.
I'm obsessed. And I was always like, how do I get those jobs? Like, how do I be the girl that sees the ghost on a haunting? Like, I know the story. Like, I know what happens. Like, please let me do it. And so it was funny because I got my undergrad in musical theater and moved here and realized maybe I don't fit in so well with the musical theater scene, which is like, fine. Like you learn and you find where you do fit. So I remember I was at, Ripley Greer, which is one of the big audition studios, and saw a bunch of girls, I think originally from Kansas City, who were all auditioning for like Summer Starlight and the Muni. And I was there for Celebrity Ghost Stories. And I like went in this tiny room where a woman had just a camera. She was like, so this scene is when the ghost, like you wake up in the middle of the night and the ghost is holding you down and you can't breathe. And I'm like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know, I'm so ready. Let's do it right now. So I'm like hyperventilating in a chair in a small studio, like with the little camera on me, having the time of my life. Yeah. And I leave and I run into these like musical theater girls. And they're like, oh, are you here for the Muni? I was like, I'm here for Celebrity Ghost Stories, and I'm not mad about it. And I totally got it. Like I got that gig and I felt like, I was like, man, this is really just like means the world to me. It probably doesn't to most people that work on the show, but I loved it.
Which episode was yours?
Well, I originally got cast as Jamie King in Celebrity Ghost Stories, which made me feel way hotter than I think I normally feel because Jamie King's like a total sex pot. But I couldn't do it because I was going back to do Goldilocks and get my equity card from Gene at Theater for Young Americans in Kansas City. So I was so devastated that I couldn't do it. So I kept in touch, and finally she's like, hey, we have another episode coming up. You know, it's Elizabeth Rom from Law and Order. Can you ride a horse? I was like, yeah, I can ride a horse. I can
Missouri,
kind of ride a horse. So we did that one instead. And that was my first time ever being on a real set. And it was non-union. And I remember I'd been on that horse for like a good 2 hours. And I finally looked at somebody and I was like, do you care if I get off the horse for a little bit? And he was like, yeah, nobody's saying you have to stay up there. We kind of just like forgot, like, sorry, we just kind of forgot, like, could not walk the next day. I was so sore, but I was really into the reenactment work. I think it's fun. And I was so young. I was like happy to be in anything, you know, I was like happy to do whatever. But now we took this really amazing film class in grad school. And it was the first year that the actors fought to be in the class, because normally only the directors and writers got to. My grad program had a playwriting, directing, and acting track. We like produced a lot together. And our class was like, no, we want to be in there because actors have to have reels now. We have to know how to edit. And so much is about YouTube and creating your own content. Mm-hmm. Like, we need to be in this class. So school said, okay, fine. So they opened it up to us. We all had to edit. We all had to DP. We made little short films on our iPhones every day. And I learned so much. And I was like, kind of said from then on, like, I'm no longer doing free student films that I'm never going to get the copy for. The script is going to most of the time be awful. Nobody's going to be on top of their shit. And I was like, I'm only doing free film for myself and with the people I want to work for, and I want to have creative control. And now I like feel like I know how to do that. So I just produced a short film. It's all produced by all women. There's 3 of us, written and directed by a woman, about a woman. And it's criticizing. It's called She Wrote Part 1, which is on women who validate themselves through sex. And I like highly recommend anybody to look it up on Vimeo. It's amazing, and it's critiquing expectations of women and sexuality, but it's being critiqued by a woman finally. And I think that as women, we can critique ourselves, but it's nice when it's us doing it instead of like the other way around. So a lot of people, you know, it was satire. A lot of people had a problem with it. A lot of people felt it was sexist. And she was like, well, I am a woman. And like, I have gone through these expectations, and like, I want to talk about it. So I'm gonna, and like, if it offends you, I'm sorry. So I admired her for that. I thought she's a clown. She's also like a professional clown and like a juggler. And
what's her name?
Her name is Pamela West. And I just like think she's the shit. And so she sent me another script, and she was like, it's thematically the same, but it's sort of an allegory to chat roulette. Do you remember chat roulette, which was like, you basically are webcamming with strangers and you just like hit next, and you're just instantly having experiences with people online. Yeah. So it's like, it's based on that kind of chat roulette, but it's done through a magical mirror, and there was no sound, you know, so like shooting a film in August with no sound is like everybody's dream, because you can have the AC on the whole time. So I was like, so we just shot that. We did it in 3 days, and it was so smooth, and everybody got along so great, and we're all really proud of it. So I think it'll do well in France. It's really sexy and kind of scary. It's almost like a thriller. But
what great experiences you've gotten to have. That's wonderful that you guys got to do that class, because I think all actors should know how to edit, because it's like $100 a pop to edit your reel. So if you can do it yourself, that's great. And being able to have that experience.
I think actors who understand, and this goes to stage, actors who understand how lighting works.
Absolutely.
Actors who understand how editing works, who understand why a camera does what a camera does. Mm-hmm. They build the tool set for themselves. They become better actors because they're more able to exist within the space that they're supposed to exist within without stepping into shadow, you know, or stepping out of focus on the camera. You know, it's the more you understand kind of a little bit of all the things that are incorporated within your field, the better you are within your field.
I think so too.
So, and totally acting's not done in a void. It's done amidst all this other stuff.
Yeah, it's an ensemble, like, team experience. So, like, if you can understand how many things go into it. And I feel like for me, when I first did film, it felt like tech day for theater just never ends. You're just always teching. And I was like, constantly. Man, when are we going to do it? When are we going to do the show? And then I realized like, it's really just about that moment when they say action and until they say cut. And that's like what it's all for, you know? And if you can like exist in those, if you can really focus and exist in that space, it's just as beautiful as being on stage. Even though I think stage is still like where my heart is really, but I still have a huge appreciation for film and TV.
It's like stage. You'll take 3 months setting up a show, and it's 3 weeks setting up lighting, and 2 weeks building a set and whatever. But on film, you got 20 minutes to set the lights.
Yep.
Keep going, and then we're gonna shoot for 2 minutes, and then we're gonna move to the next shot.
Hold it. We're gonna like do a bunch of stuff, and then just hold it and be ready to go when we're ready.
It's really still that stage experience. It's just all compressed.
Yeah.
It's like a really tight little microcosm of what you do in the stage, but it's just very precise and it's very quick and everything's moved at hyperspeed.
Exactly. It's a different ball of wax, and
then it lives forever that way.
It lives forever too.
Which is very different from stage.
And it can reach more people, in a way. Like,
so I've never really thought of that. They're like reversed. Stage takes forever to get to the performance, but then the performance is fleeting and it happens momentarily compared to the setup. Whereas film is like, we rush through getting everything done, and then you got to live with it forever.
Yeah.
Sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
I love that essentially what you were talking about earlier is the actor is the entrepreneur, which I think is necessary in this day and age, like the usage of YouTube and creating your own content and things like that. That's amazing. What kind of, you said that you've been writing as well?
Well, I have a solo show that I'm doing this November 3rd at Theater Row. It's part of the United Solo Theater Festival. And I wrote it, but it's verbatim from my 6th grade diary. So I wrote it a long time ago. But
I saw something about that on your website.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun, I think. It's like, basically, I went through puberty really fast. I mean, still have like growth marks from it. It was one of those, like, it kind of happened overnight. And it was a tumultuous time. And I was pretty awful. And like, but I feel like a lot of the traps in doing a solo piece is like, you have to differentiate it from stand-up comedy. It's not the same thing. You have to find the theatricality of it. And these journal entries are so raw and emotionally charged and completely painstakingly honest that I was like, this is just content that is so everything I need, you know what I mean? And I've already lived it. So it's easy to get back into it, and there was a solo performance class at grad school that I took, and I went in and I was basically like, look, I know that I know exactly what I want to do. I have this journal, and what I used the class for is like finding which ones were really worked and kind of created a little narrative through line. But it all went down in 1 year, and like I changed. Like one day I'd be playing with dolls, and the next day I'd be like blowing nitrous caps and like doing drugs in my neighbor's garage. It was just like, what is happening? And then there's like some daddy issues thrown in there. But like anytime I've workshopped it, girls always come up to me and they're like, oh my God, I got to go home and read my journal because that sounds exactly like what mine was like. And I was like, I know, it's universal. Like any girl that has lived through 13 is going to relate to it. And
things I didn't know about Joy.
I know. I
need to come see your show.
I was a crazy little, but I'm really excited about it because I also like to produce. And so it's going to be quite easy. It's just me and my director, and it's just our schedules, and it's just me, and like I'm producing it, and it's easy because I'm just it's like I already know everything. I know all the elements already. So I don't know. I'm really excited about it, basically.
When does it open?
It goes up just one night on November 3rd at Theater Row. It's a Thursday at 7:30. And if I sell out, I'll get another performance. It's kind of one of those things. So I shot my promo video the other day, and I think it's going to be really good. And I think it's going to really give people like, because the photo that I'm using has already just been, people are like, oh my God, I have to come see it. Because it's one of those like spring picture photos where You know, you're like, hands are crossed and there's like trees behind you. But my friend made it look super 90s. And like, what's going to be funny is everything that's going to come out of that little girl on that promo photo. You know, like you're not going to expect the show to be what it's going to be. But, and I was boy crazy, like to a fault. I mean, there's like a entry where I'm like, list like 12 guys that I'm like, why don't they like me? You know what I mean? It's just so fucking desperate and like over the top. And I also wrote a lot of song lyrics, which gives opportunity for tons of dance breaks. And like, I want it to be like high energy of a 13-year-old. Like I want the audience to barely be able to keep up. Like, just like you can barely keep up with 13-year-old girls.
Here's a question for you. Going back and looking at the journals, like, was it a revelation to you what kind of a person you were? Or did you kind of remember it being that way? Or
I remembered feeling it, and I remembered like every single entry I put in there. And I was actually really private and precious about that journal because I'm not really a writer. And I know a lot of people that still journal and write their thoughts down, and that's how they kind of cope with stuff. And I sort of like run or talk to myself. I don't really write. But I guess I needed to because I did for a year. And of course, that was like the highest stakes of my life thus far, you know, even though I was in like Perryville, Missouri and all going to be okay, honey. But like didn't know it at the time. And my friend came over and I said, oh, my God, like you should see this journal that I used to write in. And I also went through a God phase, you know, like where I felt like I was saved and that was my new intentions. So like those are pretty funny too. And he was just like, Joy, these are hilarious. Like you have to do something with these. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. Like I don't need to be precious with this. I'm almost 30 now. Like I can move on from my traumatic 13-year-old existence.
So did you always have this thing or did you like find it in a box and go, oh my God?
No, I knew exactly where it was. It was like still hidden in my room in a little old doll box in a shelf in my bedroom, and I like never took it down. Like it was.
Does your bedroom still exists the way it did?
It finally has changed.
Did your parents leave the shrine?
I went home this Christmas and redid the bedrooms because my mom had still not touched them. And I still had like, there's one entry where my mom, she's a teacher, and when she meets other teachers that have daughters that are around this age and they'll come to school and just be like, she hates me and like, I don't know what we're going to do. And my mom's like, one day Joy was in her room blaring Rob Zombie. I was like, don't even listen to Rob Zombie. I was just trying to be like, look at me, I'm so hard, you know? And my mom knocked on the door and opened it, and I was decapitating my doll heads, shaving them, and hanging them from the ceiling. And my mom was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I looked at her and I was like, this is how I feel, and like slammed the door in her face. And like, that's pretty much what 13 was for me. So like,
let that be a scene.
That's definitely, I think the climatic moment of the show is like going to be like that around that time. So
fantastic.
I don't know. It's all really, really funny. And my mom and I are so close now. You know, it was just, so she just always says like, Joy and I are so close now. We get along great. Like your daughter's going to get through it. She's just going to hate you for a while, and you just got to bear through it all. And
yeah, my dad and I mean, we came to like blows, you know, like when I was a teenager, I was awful. I was totally awful. But, you know, I left for college, grew up a little bit, had some experiences, experienced some loss, came home, and my dad and I were like best friends until the day he died.
Wow.
You know? It was this weird thing of like, I always kept apologizing to him for being a complete shit, you know? And he kept saying, you don't have to apologize for that. You were a teenager.
Right.
It's just the way it is. The parent has to deal with it.
Boys really need I feel like boys butt heads with their dads around that time, and girls butt heads with their moms.
Yep.
Because you're essentially becoming them.
Yeah, basically.
I don't want to be like you, but I am like you.
I'm just
and I'm so conflicted.
My fiance tells me all the time how much I'm like my mom. He's like, that's a very your mom thing to do. I'm like, I know.
You just can't help it.
Can't help it. We're literally made from them.
It's I mean, my dad died in 2007, and I still find myself like occasionally just like sitting at the table in a certain way, and I'll pause for a second and go, sitting just like my dad did, like it's just weird little tics and stuff. You can't get away from the fact that, they are part of your makeup.
Yeah.
Whether you wanted it to be that way or not, you're stuck with it,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the teenage years are just that. You're just railing against the idea that you're anything like them.
Exactly, yeah.
It just makes you so conflicted.
My sister did the same thing. She's now finally coming around. There'll be moments when she's like, I was a mom. I was just like, Mom, wasn't I? I'm like, yes, you were. You got it too.
Yeah. So funny. I do that with my sisters too. Like they'll say something, I'm like, okay, Dad.
It's inevitable. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
I remember your mom came to like every one of the shows.
She is. She's
so
the
supportive.
best. She flew in last weekend for this. She didn't come to New York. I was here for 6 years before she came. And because I wasn't in anything yet. Like, of course, if I booked something out of town, she would come there. But she was just scared of New York. She just called it like the big bad city. And she was just like not excited about
was she
coming.
freaked out about you coming here?
No, I think she was like, thank God my mom was always just like very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never had to deal with that like parent guilt for going into the arts. Like that was just never an issue. I'm really glad it wasn't. It was like, oh, I want to do musical theater. And it was like, okay, let's find a way for you to go to a program and study musical theater. Like it wasn't ever go be something else that you don't want to do. Like she never put that on me. But it was grad school's second year. We were doing our like first main stage show. We were doing Midsummer. I had 3 parts because we only had 10 actors. And I was like, I think you should come. Like, I think you should come to this. I think you'd like really like it. And thankfully, my brother and his girlfriend brought her the first trip. So she wasn't all alone. And then there was a show in the spring. And I was like, what do you think? And she was like, I think I can do it. So every trip, like she does one more thing by herself. Like this time, for the first time, she waited in the cab line at the airport and got a cab and came to my apartment. She texted me like 15 times in the cab. Like, we're by Barclays. Does that sound right? Passing Flushing right now. Does that sound right? It says 6.6 miles. Does that sound right? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, you're fine. He's going to bring you here. I'll see you soon. But like, and then I got her an Uber. She has her own little Uber account now. So like, but she's great when she comes and people are always like, she's coming to the show twice. My mom's like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, you think I give a shit about going to Times Square? Like, I'm here to see my daughter. I'm going to go see the play. Like, so.
I remember in undergrad, your mom came like to every show.
She did.
For most of them, it's like, this is your 5th time, all right.
She would just be like, I'm here for the weekend. I'm going to come see all of them. And I'm like, okay. She's like, what else am I going to do? Like, she's by herself most of the time, so.
It's beautiful that she shows you that kind of support.
She does. She's just the best. I love it.
I mean, you see how bubbly Joy is? Older version.
Yeah. She's a kindergarten teacher. Also, like, I'm so glad that
pretty much stop at kindergarten teacher. That says everything.
I know. She's a kindergarten teacher, but she's also a professional paper doll artist. She's also a flutist. She's also just got her master's in spiritual direction.
Wow.
She just I'm so glad she's not trying to live vicariously through me. Like she's not like waiting for me to pop out babies so she can have like a new reason for her existence. She's just like, she gets really bummed actually when she sees people and they only ask her about her kids. She's like, I'm doing a lot of really cool stuff too. Like, why don't you ask me about me? And I'm like, you get it, Mom. Like you do it. She started taking yoga. She's got all her things she does. And I just love that about her.
Our Lyft driver today was from Colombia. And she was talking about the fact that, it took her 12 years to get her residence card to come here.
Oh, wow.
And she originally applied for it when her kids were little. She wanted them to come here and go to school.
Right.
And I was like, oh, so they're all grown up now, right? And she's like, yeah, they're in university, but they're, one's going to Columbia and one's going to, I forget the other one, but
Mount Sinai.
No. It doesn't matter. They're both going to university in America, and she's really happy about that. But she goes, but it's really expensive. She goes, but it's okay. I'm old and I've lived a good life. I don't, I'll take care of them.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that sounds sad to me.
I had that same thought. Like, well, good for your kids.
Like, that's great for your kids, but wow.
Like, do you still? Like, nobody says your life's over. Like,
yeah. It's an interesting mentality. Like,
there's nothing wrong with a little student debt.
Yeah, hello.
It's the American way, right?
That's not good.
Aren't we like the most overqualified, underpaid generation of ever? Something?
I think that's the case, yes.
If it's not the case, it's certainly close to being the case.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I only did 2 years of university myself, and then I ran off to go do concerts. I'm not going to incur any more debt to go work as rock and roll. This is just stupid. What am I doing in school?
It's true.
It took off. But, Whitney, however, is the opposite. She overachieved.
I enjoyed my academic experience, both in undergrad and graduate school.
We had a good little undergrad.
We did. It was, like you said, it was a good stepping stone.
It was.
And I think in both our cases, it got us into really good graduate programs. So
it did.
Thank God there.
And also, we got to do a ton. Like, how many main stage shows did you get to do while you were at Avila?
Yeah,
like,
at least one a semester.
Absolutely. And I feel like having that experience of like having leads and carrying shows, even when you're just an undergrad, it really pays off. Yeah. Like, it helps,
Well, I think if I'd have been an actor, I'd have stuck with school, but being a tech major,
you just learn it as you go.
Once I kind of I was in charge of all the lighting for like a year and a half in college, and I was like, I know how to light this stage. I don't need to do this anymore. There's only so many ways to light this thrust,
Most tech jobs, as long as you can do, they don't care about.
Yeah, exactly. Paper. Nobody's asked me about my degree since I left college. They just don't. Same thing with directing, and
do you direct too?
Yeah, I'm a film director primarily now.
Nice.
Whitney just acted for me recently.
That's how we know each other.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So, but I think everybody's got their own path and their own way to get where they need to go, and you got to kind of just make it up as you go along. If it feels right, you stick with it.
You absolutely do.
So you've got your solo show coming up in November. Do you have anything else that you're getting ready to work on? Or
no, this summer was crazy because I got done in May, and I booked a show with Fringe through a little. So I had those rehearsals, and then that director was directing this, and called me in for this. Then we was rehearsing both at the same time, and then at some point shot that film that I was telling you about. And then now this is going to end, and I'm going to go into my solo show rehearsals, and then it's kind of then I got to breathe and be like, okay, what's next? So I don't know what's going to happen. I am going to teach twice a week, I think, for a organization called the Leadership Program, and they're pretty amazing. They basically get these huge grants, and they go into inner city schools in New York that are basically so poor that they can apply it. They can apply for these grants. They can have us come in, and it's after school programs, basically teaching whatever it is. They call it your club. So I could teach drama, I could teach music, I could do dance or whatever. But they have a really solid approach, and they also do restorative justice, and they're really about rehabilitating kids and keeping them into the school and not dropping out. And I think 65% of our students are displaced, so they don't even have a solid home to live, So of course attendance is an issue, and having role models around, but their approach and their process is all, I just really believe in it. And so I'm kind of excited about that, because my theater company went and taught. We did our first summer camp this summer in Kansas City in Independence. Nice. And it went so well because our approach was empowerment. We were let's empower the kids. Let's let that be our intention. So a lot of it was based around producing your own work, writing your own things, putting your feelings onto paper, being your own storyteller, and really just sort of not apologizing for wanting to be an artist, you
Almost
know?
an art therapy sort of
Absolutely.
situation.
And we like, none of us are trained in art therapy, but like, it was all about empowering. And, you know, you and I both came from probably very few opportunities growing up. I mean, there's not a lot going on in small towns in the Midwest. So you got to drive to St. Louis or you got to drive to a city to like get into anything really. And so we were in a small town in Missouri, and it was like important to me to give these kids an opportunity, even boys, you know, like I feel like so often as boys start to enter manhood, they're sort of bombarded with these expectations of masculinity. And if you aren't athletic and you don't play sports, then you're looked down upon. And anything that is, you know, you throw like a girl, you run like a girl. Well, like, what are we teaching these boys if everything we're teaching them that is feminine is looked down upon and is less than? And then we're so surprised that we have we have rape culture and we have all these things. And I just thought, you know, because even my brother was very tiny and couldn't play football. He would have been smashed. Right. And he got into skateboarding. And skateboarding to me is one of those cultures for the boys that don't want to play sports, that don't fit into like stereotypes of masculinity, but still want to go out and be active and hang out. And like, they're the outcasts. And so, you know, a lot of boys that were at our camp want to do musical theater and like think of all the things that they're fighting against in a small town wanting to do musical theater. Yeah. And so like, I was just excited to give even the boys a place to come in and be like, yes, you're a good dancer. And yes, we're going to celebrate it. And no, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, I just like believe that we need to empower kids and stop holding them to these expectations that just don't work for everybody. They just don't. And it's not fair. So our camp was really good. And we talked to them a lot about like not asking for permission to be artists and just to be one and to just like go for what you believe in. And, you know, we taught little electives that were songwriting, or I taught like a personal monologue class. Cause you know, a lot of people, you know, I was like, if you guys ever wanted to write, what do you want to write? And they're like, I want to write a zombie movie that's like this. And I'm like, cool. Well, like, let's just go a little deeper. Like, what's something like personal that we could write about, you know, because like to get them closer to like universal themes and something they've experienced that they're just going to feel a lot closer to. There's like more of a risk, you know. Zombie movies are awesome and we need them, but like, what else do you have to say as an artist? And so just watching these girls cruise around, like one of the girls, her mom came up to me and she was like, yeah, she said she came home and she was like, well, Joy told me that I don't need permission to be an artist. And so I think I'm just going to do all these things now. And I'm not even scared about it. I don't even care. And I was like, yes, girl, you do it. Like, do it. Nobody can tell you not to, you know? And I just like, that was what we were really pushing. And then I was like, I need to go teach. I got to teach. I got to like give back. So
there's something really rewarding with
I think so
giving
too.
back, you know, like,
yeah.
Because I think all of us at some point in time have been affected by some teacher along the way. For me, it was Mr. Davies, who's my 10th grade English teacher, just blew my mind. And oddly enough, he's the guy who told me it was okay to say fuck it about school. Right?
Just
like,
kind of sometimes what you need to hear.
Yeah, he was just like, you know what? He's like, it's not for everybody. You know, he's like, if it's not for you, go find what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, just be inspired, you know? That guy was amazing. And you know, when I made the decision to leave college, like he was at the front of my mind.
Yeah.
And it was never the wrong choice for me. You know,
pretty sure Robert Folk told me that about acting.
Really?
Yep.
He was like,
because he told me on many occasions that I had too much armor, and he's like, really? Just go up there and say fuck it and just do you.
Yeah.
And it took me years after the fact to actually take said advice.
Absolutely. You also have to grow into that part of yourself as a person, you know, like it's easy to be like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. But when you're 15, it's really hard to live that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
My mom always said, she was like, just remember, Joy, like when you're in your teens and your early 20s, all you're going to do is care about what everybody thinks. And then you're going to get to your 30s and you're going to stop caring. And then you're going to get to your 50s and you're going to realize nobody ever gave a fuck anyways. And I was like, you're right, Mom. You're
That's
so
beautiful.
right. And I was like, if I can just orient to that now, like I'll be ahead of the game. Like, because she's right. Like, who really cared? You know, doesn't.
If anybody cared, it's fleeting.
Absolutely.
The amount of care that they actually had about you, you know.
Yeah, and education has its own faults anyways. You know, I saw this, you know, like memes or whatever. I saw one that had like a kid raising his hand and he was like, when are you going to teach us how to do our taxes? And the dude was like, not important. In cells and mitochondria, there's like a blah, 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 blah. Like went into some biology that like you memorized for a test that you never thought of again. And then you still don't really know how to do your taxes. And like kind of have to know how to do it. It's like.
So it's a weird thing. We don't get taught practical stuff.
We don't. And
it's handy for drunken trivia though.
Drunken trivia, exactly. In science category, if you're in science category.
Science.
Ugh. Yeah.
So how long does Merchant run?
We opened, like, this is our third weekend. So this is our last weekend. Mm-hmm. So we've been running, I think we had like 16 performances total. The first week was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Second week was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 on Sunday, which is what we are doing this week too. It's good. We've had 6 reviews now and they've all been great. So like that's fun. And I'm excited for the final weekend. They say that these are always like the best houses and everybody shows up for the last weekend. It's harder to get people in the beginning. So let's see who's here. So, yeah, I'm pumped to do the final round. Cool. I still have friends coming this weekend too, so
good. Well,
I'm going to come.
And Whitney's coming tonight.
She'll do a review.
Yeah, are you going to do a review?
I am.
Nice.
So we should let you go and start getting ready and join your cast.
This was super fun.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.